You're listening to the Imprint Podcast. I'm your host, Micah, and today's episode is titled, When I Fall in Love, and this poem is written by me. When I fall in love, it will be a godsend. He will be chosen by God. When I fall in love, it will be real. He will be honest and true. When I fall in love, it will be long term. He will be mine until the end of time. When I fall in love, it will be new. Two pure hearts becoming one. When I fall in love, he will know, and I will be the one. So, this one I wrote March 8th of 2018, so coming up on a few years now. And I took an impromptu week off of recording because I had been sick all last week with the flu. And last week was supposed to be my last week of posting for this season. And then I was going to take 2 weeks to record for the second season of the show. And it just didn't happen that way. So today I decided to just make this the last week. And there will be 2 more episodes. It'll be this one and one more. And then I'll go on a 2-week hiatus just to record, edit, write. And then March 24th will be the start of season 2. So as I was going through my stuff, I had a completely different poem that I was going to read. And I was like, you know what? This one is kind of cheesy. Like, I wanted to read something along the lines of finding love, but I didn't want to read that particular one. And so I found this one, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a good one to talk about and kind of branch off into. And it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, I had really felt the Lord pressing on my heart to read the story of Ruth, and how she found Boaz and how that came to be, and like telling that story on the angle of learning how to wait for something that you really want and not letting anybody else influence your decision on what you want, which in this case, for the poem, is talking about love and wanting love. But for Ruth, it's not only just about finding love. There's so many underlying messages and nuances to that story. And I feel like everybody kind of just sticks with the cliche version of the Ruth story, which is falling in love and finding the one person God has for you, which is nothing wrong with that, but just also trying to keep in mind that that story has many different facets. But I did feel God kind of moving on my heart to talk about that Ruth story in the sense of waiting on your husband. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this apart. So the first stanza says, when I fall in love, it will be a godsend. He will be chosen by God. And this was more of an encouragement to myself, knowing that when the time comes, like, I won't have to question it. And it's not a matter of if I fall in love, it's going to happen. And when it does, it will be because God has sent that person in my life. And I won't have to question whether or not, God, is this the one? The second stanza says, when I fall in love, it will be real. He will be honest and true. And this was kind of coming from how society kind of makes us believe like men aren't good for anything and women can just love themselves and be good alone, and, just downplaying the male role in society, and, all of the things that come up negative about men. And I'm trying to debunk that in this poem by saying, like, you may come across a man that is not true and not wise and worthy of the things that they claim they are. But if it is a godsend, it will be the opposite. So paying attention to those characteristics when you're dating and when you're talking to someone, because the signs may be there before anything gets serious. And if you ignore it, then you'll be stuck. So it's like, when you're seeking and you're searching and you're praying, making sure that you're actively listening to God and following his heart and his command, because he is going to be the ultimate one to lead you to who he has you matched with. The third stanza says, when I fall in love, it will be long term. He will be mine until the end of time. And this is also me debunking the whole, love comes and goes. They're not yours forever. They're just yours for the moment, which is true to an extent because everybody has to perish. But in the sense of you shouldn't get too attached because it's going to end anyway. Getting out of that mind frame, because that is what the world sees relationships as. Not getting attached, not getting married, not staying in long-term dating relationships or courtship relationships because they're just going to leave anyway. They're going to find somebody better. Something better is going to come up, and that is not how God designed love and marriage. When he designed it, he had an end goal in mind, to be together and be a partnership for the kingdom. So when you start to look at relationships in that way, it makes you more content in your waiting, because you're like, I don't want to just be with any person. I want to be with someone that God has sent in my life so that we can glorify God together and prosper together. And if you're not praying specific prayers and you're not being intentional with your prayers about your mate, it's not going to be what you expect it to be. It's not going to be anything helpful or fruitful or, of true meaning and depth. The next stanza says, when I fall in love, it will be new, two pure hearts becoming one. And this is saying when I fall in love, it's going to be something that I've never experienced before, and it's going to lead to marriage. So that's the whole two pure hearts becoming one. That's where that comes from, is when I fall in love, it's not just going to be a fling or, oh, I'm dating, I have a boyfriend now, but it's going to be something meaningful, and it's going to lead to marriage. The last stanza says, when I fall in love, he will know, and I will be the one. And so that's me saying, when I fall in love, the person I fall in love with will know I'm the one for them and they're the one for me. So in a world where you see on social media, you see everywhere that people are falling in love, they're getting married, and then it's not lasting. They break up, they find someone else. It's like, I was in a mind frame of, yes, I want to be in a relationship, but I don't want to be in a roller coaster relationship, because that's what's praised in society today. And I wrote this in 2018, and I had been single, and I was very cautious of the people that I wanted to pursue relations with or thought would be, the one. And I made some mistakes, and I've fallen short, just in trying to grow up and figure out what it is I want out of life and out of myself and out of a godly relationship. And I will say everything in that poem is true. It was something that I wasn't expecting. It was new. The guy that I started dating was one of my really good friends throughout college, and he actually approached me first, and I was shocked because I was like, I would have never thought you would go for somebody like me, and I didn't think I would go for someone like him, which in reality, he was everything that embodied what I wanted out of a godly man. But I was stuck on the fact that he's younger than me and he's a football player, and that is not what I want. So I was just like, I would never be attracted to somebody like that. But he checked off all the other boxes. And so it was like, oh, why not situation, and it just comes with being young and kind of immature and what you think you want, and not realizing the true meaning of relationships and what God has for you kind of trumps and debunks everything that you would want materialistic wise. And it was just really funny because at first, when I wrote this poem, I was so pro relationship and love and finding someone and getting married and all the things. And then when I came to college, after that first year, I was like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with love. I don't want no relationships. I do not care to go on dates and all of this stuff. I just want to live my life and party and have a good time and, whatever. And it was kind of a push and pull throughout my whole entire college experience. Like at one point I'd be like, okay, now I really do want to settle down and find someone. The next breath I'd be like, you know what, forget it. And I feel like everybody kind of goes through that tug of war when it comes to love and relationships, because you either get hurt, you see someone get hurt, or you just feel like I'm not ready, or you make up all the excuses to say I'm not ready. And I want to be the first to say when God is ready, it's going to happen. So referencing the story of Ruth, basically Ruth was married, her husband had passed, and she was living with her mother-in-law and her sister-in-law. And her mother-in-law was getting older, to the point where she was like, you know, my husband has passed, I'm not going to get remarried, I'm going to leave, but you two stay here and find husbands for yourselves. And the sister-in-law, you know, she stayed, but Ruth was like, no, like, I'm not leaving. I have a loyalty to you, and I have a loyalty to God and what he says, and so I'm going to go. And you know, Naomi was kind of hesitant about that because she really felt like, I don't see why you would come with me, like I can't. But Ruth set out anyway with them, and she wound up meeting Boaz, who was also Boaz was a part of the same lineage as Ruth's deceased husband. And you know, it was very strategic and put together by God, because there's no other way that could have happened if she wound up staying and not leaving with Naomi. Very ironically, we all find ourselves in that situation sometimes where you think, I'm going to be with this person and we're going to get married and all of this happens, and then God is like, no, this is actually the person I have for you. And there have been plenty of times where I'm like, oh yeah, this is the guy I'm going to be with, and this is the guy I'm going to be with, and God is like, no. And so this was different because this was something that I didn't seek out. Like I said, I was more in my denial stage than I was in my acceptance stage of love. And that's how I knew it was a godsend, because he wasn't really looking, I wasn't really looking, and God just brought us together. And we are very sure and confident that we are who God wants us to be with. And he is everything that I wanted and I prayed for. And there's a lot of things about him that I prayed for and I see happening and manifesting that I've never even said to anybody. So that's another indicator to know, like, okay, God, you were really listening to me when I prayed those prayers. And like I said, the last time I really prayed about a husband and a mate was, I want to say 2020. And after that, you know, after I didn't have a boyfriend in the few months after I prayed that prayer, I just gave up altogether. And I said, you know what? It's fine. It's cool. I don't need it. I'm just going to do whatever I want and just be happy being single. And it wasn't until I started saying, okay, God, like, I want to be in a relationship, but I want to be intentional because I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to get hurt again. I don't want to be misled. And I definitely don't want to waste somebody else's time. And so that was a period that I had never explored before, because I was learning how to be godly and intentional in my singleness. God is like, you know, faith without works is dead. If you don't do what you're supposed to do to get what you want or get where you need to be, it's not just going to fall in your lap. And even though throughout those years where I wasn't being intentional about praying for a relationship, God still honored those prayers and those sincere requests back in 2020 and 2019 and 2018 when I was praying those prayers. He honored that, and he didn't let go of that. He was just waiting for me to say, okay, God, I'm ready to take this serious. And, you know, every day I learn something different about what it means to be in a godly relationship. And I'm just excited to know that I'm learning it with someone who is also experiencing it for the first time as well, because we don't have to bring any pretenses to the relationship. We're learning strictly through the Bible and what God is giving to us to learn from. And we get to grow and see this thing through together. So my advice and message to all of the females who are single is don't give up hope. Don't, curse the name of love because you've been hurt or you've been denied or you've been rejected, because you never know how soon or how quick something can happen and what you really want will come to pass. God is just waiting for you to say, okay, Lord, show me how to start taking relationships seriously. Give me the prayers to pray, move on my heart, move on my spirit, but most importantly, finish the work that you started in me so that I can even be prepared to be in a relationship. Because there's a lot of things that God was working on in my heart that I didn't even know were preparing me to be in a relationship. Not to say that there's nothing that I have to work on now that I'm in a relationship, because there's plenty of things I have to work on, but it's more of a things I have to work on with being with someone else, rather than I need to fix this, I need to fix that about me personally. It showed me a lot about myself. It showed me areas I need to grow in. It showed me areas that I'm actually more mature in than I thought. And it just opens up a different perspective of God, a different perspective of relationships and marriage. And it honestly, it helps me appreciate more what it means to be in a partnership. Obviously everything is not going to be perfect and sunshine and rainbows when it comes to being in a relationship. It's not going to be how it is on the TV. But it gives me a sense of hope to know, like, no matter what happens, at the end of the day, we still love each other and we're trying to grow and prosper together. Like, this is a partnership. This is what it means to be on a team. It's not always me against you, and it shouldn't be me against you. It should be us against the problems and opposition of life. And once you get into that mindset, it's going to be a lot easier, to function. And obviously, keeping God at the center of it all is what's going to make everything worthwhile. But if you don't share those core values and those core foundational morals, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder to function in a relationship. And if you're just willing to wait and just obey God like Ruth did, I'm telling you, your Boaz will come. And don't be shocked when it happens, because I was most definitely shocked. I was not expecting it. And the way that it happened was so seamless that I couldn't deny that it was a God thing. And, I'm just so thankful to have somebody that I can call my own and know that they're always going to be there for me. They're always going to stick beside me. They're not going to let me fall. They're not going to let me, get consumed in the negativity of the world and, all those things. And having God makes it all the more special, because it's very hard now to find not just people who are of the same belief, but who are also on the same page. You can be a Christian all your life and start dating somebody who just became a Christian, and there's going to be such a disconnect because you might be way more mature and they're just starting to learn. So it's going to take a different level of patience, and it's not impossible, but it is more of a challenge than having somebody who's on the same journey when it comes to their, faith walk. And I'm grateful for that. I am so thankful that, I can talk to him about stuff and be like, yeah, I've been feeling that too, or I agree. And it be genuine and not just somebody saying that just to appease you so that they can, be in a relationship with you. Because I've also dealt with that. And this was just so different. And I'm grateful that it happened the way it did, because if it were to happen any other way, I think I would have probably just been like, no, like another pattern that I'm realizing, and I don't want to go down this road again with relationships. But it happened in a way that I could not even make up and I couldn't even imagine. So I'm like, okay, this is God answering those prayers that I prayed such a long time ago. And when you're in a season of singleness, it's so important to pray and ask God to reveal to you what it is about yourself you need to work on and fix and tweak. Because it's not so much saying I want to be perfect for my mate, because we'll never be perfect, but it's more so saying I want to go into a relationship knowing how to completely be myself and completely be vulnerable and not ashamed. And you can only do that by healing and forgiving yourself first. And I think I talked about that in another episode. It was the one about self-love. And if I were to go into this relationship not having prayed those prayers and done the inner work that needed to be done, we would not have lasted. There's a lot of things that I needed to let go of. There was a lot of learned behaviors I've seen from other couples, and just what society puts out there that were instilled in me, and I needed to break those, and I needed to ask God to release me from those chains so that I can be in a healthy relationship. And even with him, like, there were some things he said, I thought about and I learned and I saw, and I just said, that's not going to be me, or I'm not going to bring that into a relationship. And so it helps to know that you're not alone when it comes to things like that, because it allows you to be more transparent in a relationship. And so I love my man, James. If you're listening, I know you're going to listen, because I'm going to bug you about listening to this. I am grateful for you. I'm thankful for you. And I can't wait to see what God has in store for us. And I'm kind of sad because I had this plan to read last week to end, February, Valentine's month and all of that. But I feel like God wanted me to talk about this today, because it could not have happened last week. I was coughing and my voice was going in and out, and it was just, every time I tried to set my setup up to record, it was just like I would just get a headache, or I'd be drowsy from the medicine I was taking. So I'm thankful that I'm healed now and that this message is going out. And I just pray right now that whoever is listening to this that needs to receive this, that you will receive this, and that it will be, some hope. Because when you're single, a lot of people feel like they're alone. They'll never find someone. It's taken too long. Nothing is working out. There's just too much negative out there when it comes to being single than it is positive. And you just have to be willing to just completely break yourself down to God and say, I need you to help me in this singleness. I need you to show me what I'm supposed to be in my singleness. And, just pray, God, match me with who you want me to be with. And I had to take out all of my pretenses. I had to take out the fact that I didn't want to date somebody who was younger than me. I didn't want to date somebody who was a football player. I didn't want to date anybody with a J name. All of the goofy things that we say you don't want because that particular thing has hurt you in the past, or that particular person has hurt you in the past. And so I had to let go of all that and say, God, fix me, work on me, and allow the person you have for me to come in at the time you want them to. And then you have to actually put in the work, which was hard. And there was a period where I was single, I think it was the year 2022, where I really, really went through a rough time personally, because God was shifting and moving things in my mindset and in my heart that I had held on to, and I couldn't understand why. And once I got into this relationship, I'm starting to see, this is why you had me go through that. This is why you had me speak to this person. This is why you had this person come into my life. And it's like it's all starting to come full circle and make sense. But at the time, I just found myself, getting hurt and hit after hit, and I was just like, why? And now I can appreciate those tough trials because it brought me to a better place mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And it brought me to a better place to be there for someone else and allow someone else to be there for me. So why do I think this poem is important, and how can we all learn from it? I think this is important because it's outlining and defining what a God-sent man is supposed to be. And if you find yourself coming into contact and dating other people who are not fitting those lines and outlining what a man should be, then it's going to be easier for you to say, hey, I think we should just be friends. I don't think we should take this any further. And then it's important because it's going to help you appreciate when it is finally a man that God has sent for you. And I think we can learn from this because we can learn what it truly means to be single, what it truly means to wait, what it truly means to not be led by temptation when you are scrolling on Instagram and Snapchat, and when you're going out being tempted, and when somebody comes up to you and you know good and well this is not a God sent, but I'm going to entertain it anyway. Like being able to stand firm and say, no, this is not the person God has for me. And it's important also when you're single to not put a time limit on your singleness. Like I said to myself, I'm going to be single for 1 year and then I'm going to go out and start dating again. And I have a few people who can back me up on when I said that. And God was like, no. Like that's not how it works. You are to be single until I tell you, okay, your singleness is up. And we put ourselves in dangerous situations when we try to put a time limit on what God has designed for us. And that's why it's so important to really pray and be in tune with God and listen to his voice, because when he is telling you it's time, you don't want to block your blessing because you feel like this is not what I want, or this is not how I thought it would be. That's how you can miss what God has for you. So like I said, I am so blessed and so thankful and grateful for James and the fact that God has brought James into my life, especially at the time that he did. And I couldn't imagine living this year without having him in that capacity in my life, because there's a lot of things that I went through and gone through that honestly only he could understand. And it's been a blessing, and I'm so excited to see what more God has in store for us. And I just want to encourage those who are single, whether you're male or female, to enjoy your singleness and do it with God. Don't do it the way the world says to do it, because it's not going to be worth your time, and it's not going to bring you any type of growth, and it's not going to bring you any type of healing, and it's not going to bring you any it's not going to do you any good. So that is what I have to say about that. I hope that whoever is listening can take this to heart and go read the story of Ruth. Go read the story of how she came to be in her marriage and in her relationship, and really ask God to begin to open up himself to you and reveal himself to you so that you can see what love is supposed to feel like, firstly, and then go in and read about how a marriage should be, how a wife should be, how a husband should be. That way you can have a good preset and pretense on what it is God has for you and what you should be looking out for. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this written piece of the journey, and I hope that I can inspire you to write your own, and I will talk to you in the next episode.